Now we're rolling. You'll hear me in a second. Okay, let me get over here in the seat. All right, Simon, good party, man. Thanks for bearing with us. This is the first sesh of the live stream. I've got the recorder going too, so we'll save all this content for later consumption, use, and editing. All right, let's see. And if anybody feels like if they're too loud, if you want to. Yeah. So, things here.
I heard you said now we're rolling.
Yeah. So just as a heads up, boys, keep your mics up close to your faces. Hey, this is Corey Mitten. Splunk conf 2017. And yes, sign me up, sign up.
Hey, Corey. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right, so Simon, we've also got a
I'm doing great. Good to be here.
Okay, so it is.
Yeah, last night was the partner soiree. Soiree. That's how you say it. Partner party. Soiree. Yeah.
Event.
So yeah, usually they say it's day one, but I don't know. Today's like really day one because keynote and all that good stuff, and then session. So yeah, and we got what, 3 more days to go? 2.5. Happy to. So I run sales engineering for our global partners. What's included in there is America's channel sales engineering. So when we work with partners, with value-added resellers, it's sales engineering for them. Also our strategic alliances. So when we partner with lovely people like you, someone needs to do the sales engineering work or the technical account management or relationships. So when we build stuff together, which I think we're going to talk about, or if we want to go to market together, it's those types of activities that my team support. Only 9.5 years. Yeah, so I think we were founded in what was it, 2006 or 5? It just depends who you want to go official by. But yeah, I've been doing this for over 9 years. I love this place, and it's actually relationships like this, which are what keep me doing this stuff. And of course, awesome team, awesome people. But just a little bit about some of my background. I actually started out at Splunk doing support. So when you would call in back in 2008, you'd get me saying, "Thank you for calling Splunk. May I please have your case number, please?" And yeah, so I would literally dig up your case number, ask you what was broke, and go help you out. And then somehow I got into doing consulting for us and worked on some of our largest deployments. Spec and hardware, all that type of good stuff. And ever since the first conf, I've been speaking, doing stuff, and actually kind of turning back a little bit. I got into pre-sales essentially. And so that's how now I do what I do, and obviously work with partners. I've spoken at all 8 confs.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So I was actually talking to a guy I had lunch with today about it, and he said, "Oh yeah, I've been all A too." I said, "Yeah, wasn't it like, I think like 200-ish, maybe 300 people total, like everybody." Yeah, it was small, but it was great. It was the same type of vibe, which is awesome. You've spoken at many other things, I'm sure. So I would imagine you got me beat. Total people here, yeah, 6,100 customers, something like that. I think a little bit more. Dude, it's crazy. Yeah. I think honestly, it goes back to why I'm still here. It's a lot of the people, a lot of the interactions. Like I think people like us, we have very similar behaviors and personalities. Good example. Last conf, I think you met my friend Deep, and I believe
maybe.
So I believe the story. Well, we can talk a little bit about the story. I think it's a very good one. So for those of you that don't know, Deep Baines, he was on the keynote this morning, smashing computers. I have the fortune of having him on my team, and he was searching around at hotels at the last conference, or looking around at hotel rooms because he's walking the halls, and I guess he stumbled upon your room because the door was open. And what were you guys doing?
We were in deep thought. Yeah, deep thought about
Book club.
Splunk architecture.
Was it about hops?
Sounds about right.
Well, but so the cool thing is, everybody here is like, oh yeah, just come hang out. What are you doing? Who are you? And I think that vibe has been consistent ever since we started. Like I remember some of the first conferences, we were in San Francisco, and you would go down to the lobby bar, or whatever it is, and you'd run into all the salespeople, all the customers, and we'd all be hanging out. And I think you do find a little bit of that at some conferences still, but like ours has been very, very much focused on the users or the community. And I think that's where you find a lot of this networking is much different.
Yeah, I mean, from my side, it's one of the more inclusive communities that I've seen. I mean, compare this to some of the other data conferences. Everybody's a little bit closed, and I'm looking at my own thing, but man, not here. I mean, it's all about sharing and how I go to market, how I do things, how to get to my data. It's great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. 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 So to me, this is kind of near and dear because, as I mentioned earlier, I used to do consulting. I was, the guy on site at one of our largest deployments, and so I would be helping make hardware decisions. Which thing to buy and why. And so, in the current role in this whole integration team, as I call it, we get the opportunity to provide guidance to people on exactly what you should get from Dell EMC. And so what was great is we never really had what I would call recommendations or solid guidelines on exactly what you should buy from somebody. What I mean by that is, for years upon years and years, even to this day, we actually don't tell you who to go buy from. Like, well, a little bit, and we'll get at that in a second. But we always just tell you buy 8 cores or 12 cores or 16 cores, get 16 gigs of RAM at least, and make sure you have spinny disks of this level. And we don't care whatever you do as long as it meets, we would say, this IOPS spec, like 800, and that's all we did. And so when I'd be at said customer, they're like, well, what's the equivalent HP? I'm like, I don't know. I've never done this. And so over the course of time and learning and talking to all my fellow consultants or people in support, we would document like, oh, okay, we want this specific Dell box, or we want this specific EMC device to go do storage. And so what's great about having this team is we can go partner with you, ask you, hey, what's the good stuff? Okay, maybe what's the right way to configure it? Mm-hmm. We can do maybe a little bit of testing around it so that we understand how it performs and so it does the right things. And then that's where we're able to come out with these reference guides. So I think you know a little bit about those. Yeah. Yes. It's easy button, but also I think some of the technologies that you guys have, they really are advantageous for some of our customers, like some of the dedupe capabilities, the HA or DR stuff that's built in. For us, we don't like to be handling that. We don't like to be involved. We just say, hey, look, go choose whatever you want. And so that's where these partnerships are really interesting to me, because we bring an overall solution that comes packaged. Because we don't sell hardware. We need somebody to go tell us or support us in these opportunities, but also, it sounds kind of, sorry way to put it, maybe not necessarily negative, but when there's an escalation or there's something wrong, like I can go call on you and you got my back just as I got your back, which has been awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So the best way to describe it is probably me going into a little bit about the program. And so we have a technology alliance program. So it's for all these, you'll see it here in this Source Pavilion Hall with all these sponsors. It's to support anybody that wants to be an ISV or IHV, and we'll go enable you to maybe build an app, build an integration, and maybe it's at some point my team getting involved. But the idea is to enable partners to be part of that ecosystem and contribute, whether it's via hardware or a platform or something like that. And so I think just over the past handful of years, the whole DevOps thing, like you're now a site reliability engineer, and I still tell my brother who does that, like, dude, you're a sysadmin. Like, shh. I mean, not to be negative, but SRE is a better way to describe it, because that really is what you do. But the functions are very similar. So you think of like containerization, Dockers. It's like, well, it's very, very useful for certain things. I think for Splunk, for what we do, just because of how we're very persistent and how it's used and how it's very sticky, it may not be the best like containerized thing right now, or it's not built there right now. But I think for the apps that people deploy, absolutely, like that's where people are going. Like I think at a partner conference that I went to, they had somebody on stage and they moved everything to containerized. I was like, wow. So when you want to relaunch, you basically hit a button and everything spins up brand new, versus the old way was take it down, rebuild it, spin up all your appy things. So we're pushing into some of those partnerships. I would say it's just a market thing. Like, yeah, Docker, certainly we're doing stuff with them.
Right. But monitoring of, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's where our technology is getting better at what I would say being easier to use in collecting data. So back in the day, it was just 3 ways you go collect data. It's file, like logs, network input, or some sort of scripty thing that you would write, whether Bash or Corn or PowerShell. And then now it's like, well, you can use this HTTP event collector, so you can just push events to us, which a lot of these systems out there do right now. Most of, I think the Dell EMC products, there's like a typical syslog out or something like that, even an API. Mm-hmm. But I think the way things are going, there is some method to push from that API, and our interface is more friendly to that. And then you hear these IoT type scenarios, and certainly that same collector is good for that. But you have all these other modular inputs, as we call them, which are canned ways of putting in data. So we might build a mod input for, I don't know, maybe it's all the Dell EMC stuff, or for somebody else. And it's just letting that user specify what's relevant to them, maybe user ID, a password, a passkey, and then data just works. So once we're able to do that, you think of containers. It's like, wow, we've made it easy so that you can understand what's going on, and then everything else is just typical Splunk.
Yeah, that part didn't change. No.
So I guess from an alliance perspective, customer meetings or
I would say from an alliance's perspective, it's a good balance of, or probably majority behind the scenes, like doing the type of stuff we're doing here, where we want to enable others. The only way we can get scale, and this is something fundamental to how I've always thought about the alliance or BD type of activity. You're always trying to gain leverage. You're always trying to make 1 and 1 be 3 or more, or X10, multiples. And so you can't do everything 1-to-1, but there are cases where you guys probably see it. You need to have that one-on-one interaction, because that's what you own, and that's what you need to get done. And then everything else, it's scaling it. So I think, a lot of my engagements, it's figuring out how to scale stuff, training internally. I think you guys do a lot of that as well. And it goes cross ways too, right? Like I think we've seen a lot of you ninjas coming through our stuff, and I think to me that's a beautiful thing, because then I'm building scale, right? I'm not the one that has to go answer these things. You guys are totally enabled. And by the way, you're better to talk about stories than I am. I don't have all those answers.
Yeah.
A little bit.
So I guess the other kind of topics I want to bring up. So there's some announcements this morning on
Yes. Yeah.
What is that? What does that mean for customers? Like, when you talk about performance, is it regardless of hardware? Is it performance is bound on something like development?
Yeah. So there are performance improvements in enterprise security and data models and some other items under the hood of Splunk. So in general, for most customers, I would say they might notice a little bit if they're using data models, particularly data models. Outside of that, I'm not too familiar with some of the underhood modifications, but certainly there are some performance improvements for ES for sure. Like there are some big things that they've done. So if you're a customer out there, as far as making hardware choices and stuff like that, certainly you can benefit if you have really nice hardware. We've made some changes in not this release, but the previous release, that allows you to get more leverage out of what I would say a more vertically powered box. And you can still scale horizontally. That still applies for everything. But the stuff today, yeah, certainly it's some noticeable improvements, in data models and ES and some other things under the hood. Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the things that we've kind of had an opportunity to improve on, for years we would just say, hey, yeah, just 12 cores, 12 gigs, X amount of IOPS, and we've had that standard for I can't tell you how many years, since like I was doing services and stuff, which is 7-8 years ago, and it hasn't really changed. Like maybe we upped it to 12 from 8, but I'm sure the standard now is what, 24 core boxes, 36. Funny, people still try to buy those.
Yeah, why would you do that? Yeah. Right.
Well, and so I never really understood this until I got into the pre-sales side. Like I was always just buy the most value-oriented thing. If it's this amount of cores, this amount of gigs, like that's what you can afford, that's what you buy. Now, you know, having worked in sales a little bit, you realize that if you have the money, buy the best thing you can possibly buy, because you will save down the road. And you know, what is it Moore's law? You know, so in 2 years you're gonna be outdated. So why are you gonna wait to just keep repopulating every year and always be a year behind the curve? Like you want the best, right? And if your business relies on it, come on, man. Like you gotta buy good stuff. And so yeah, we updated to, I think we suggest 24 cores, even 36 is like pretty normal now. And the more RAM you can get, the better. Funny, you know, in talking about that, or I'm presenting on performance opportunities in Splunk, or observations, I would say, and that's going to be tomorrow at, I want to say 4:20. Sounds like a magic number. 42, 420. Yeah, I think it's room 150. I don't know. You can look it up on the. But so myself, yes. So myself and Brian Wooden, who runs the partner integration team, we're going to talk about how indexing and searching, kind of how they work under the hood, but really how hardware impacts the performance. So if you're searching, well, what really happens to I/O and CPU? Okay, well, if you're indexing, what really happens to I/O and CPU? And it might surprise you what actually really happens. And then the different types of searching, and then what can you do? Like, where can you spend your money? And those guidelines that we've recently released are certainly built around a lot of those guidelines. And I have to give a shout out to Dritan Bachinka, who he actually built this original presentation, and we've just we're taking it over. Yeah, I like plagiarizing.
Nice. I like it.
That sounds like a storage thing or something. So this is, you know, again, this is really credit to Dritan, who used to work on my team. He had worked in services for years and always got questions from, you know, your most challenging customers, like, well, should I buy this? Well, why does it perform that way? So, you know, him being smart guy, well, I'll just make my own test toolkit. And don't get me wrong, our internal engineering QA performance people, they have their own testing framework. But he kind of built his own. He joined up with them. And so this is a combination of what engineering has built out as far as how to test and what he built into it. So there's all these ways of actually using Splunk to understand the dynamics of CPU, I/O, you know, different types of search workloads, concurrency, all that good stuff. And so there's a syslog-like data set. It's quite large. Tests are run against that. There are different levels of term insertion. What I mean by that, it sounds really weird. In your logs or in your events, you have different things you want to look for. Let's say it's the name Corey, maybe it's Alex, maybe it's Rob, maybe it's SYEP. So there are different occurrences of those in levels or amounts. And so when you run these searches at different types, or I should say when you run the different types of searches, they may show up at different levels. And so a lot of the testing is based around looking at those different types of searches. And the way we differentiate it is kind of at two extremes. One is your needle in a haystack. So I need to find that one time y'all's logged in a week ago and decided to visit, I don't know, whatever special website you wanted to visit. That's one. That's like kind of a more rare search. Yeah. And then there might be something else which is more dense, which could be, I want you to count all the different IP addresses that have gone through these systems. That's a lot of data. We call that a dense search. And then you have something in between, which is, okay, I want to look at all the IP addresses, but then I only want to find the data that has, let's say it's CMITN in it, but I still want all that stuff. So that's kind of a sparse search. So you have these different ranges, and the performance profiles are very different of each of them. As you can imagine, we have this indexing technology, it searches, it spits back data pretty fast. And what people want is that Google-like experience, or having been having worked at their competitor, we like to say search engine, your favorite search engine. It's like the Kleenex versus tissue. Do you need tissue? Do you need? So anyhow, yeah, we only serve Pepsi here, which is true. Yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is, right? Yeah.
So those profiles, again, you have this one extreme side of dense, meaning you want to return as much data as possible to look at it, and then this other side of being very rare. You just need to find that one thing. It takes different resources to go do those, and without going into super detail, I'll give a little bit of hints of what we're going to come out with, and that's your rare searches are the ones that need to find the needle in a haystack. Those are actually the most I/O bound, meaning you actually have to go to the disk a lot to go find whatever thing you need to find, which is probably shouldn't be a surprise. Versus those dense types of searches, which they pull as much back as possible. You would think, wow, that must be even more reading. No, it's quite the opposite. And the reason being is that we know where this data lives, but we compress it on disk. We need to unpack it. So it's actually CPU bound when we do those types of searches. It's actually not I/O. I know, quite contradictory, isn't it? Correct. So what this smart guy Dritan, I'm gonna have to send him this podcast so he can hear his name being mentioned. He decided, well, I'll create these tests that run the different searches in different amounts, and maybe even mix them together so that you can see like what really happens in a system. Because we always tell people, hey, I can perform this test in an arbitrary way that's very lab-like. So I can get profiles of these extremes and even somewhere in the middle. And in theory, if we do this right, it should reflect kind of what you see in real life, which could be I run a bunch of needle in a haystack when I want to get on the system, but I'm always running these regular reports because I need to know how everything's working. It's automated. In theory, if you have Splunk doing what you need it to do, it should be really automated, just running stuff all the time. So you have this mixed bag of load, and it's hard to profile because I think different customers use the product in different ways. Well, I know they do. So it might be security, it might be IT troubleshooting, it might be business analytics. The profiles are very different, and then if you have people that are always on the system running these ad hoc searches, that's where you have an extremely surprising amount of ad hoc or varied loads. If that makes sense.
I've seen that recently, and doing some performance work with a customer of mine, and trying to tune, and they got out, and I think I was going to ask you this question: you get yourself into trouble tuning to a specific kind of spot, right? Like I've tuned for this workload or that workload, and now I've cratered. Tell them that. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So the good thing is you don't need to go really tune stuff or profile things or tweak numbers. Like leave that to services people. There are some things you can tweak. The big thing to understand, and the whole reason we're doing this presentation, is to educate people and help them understand here are the ways Splunk is behaving, and here's what you need to understand about what's going on under the hood, so you can make intelligent decisions as the really expert Splunk person on how I can manage the search workload or indexing workload. Because that's really the intent of it, right? Because I think about it, well, if I educated you guys on it, well, what's the takeaway? Well, the takeaway for you is really how do I spec a system that's right, but also you need to understand what they're trying to do. And yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. You would hope they do. Sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's so important. I think we can have our next content. I'm spinning on what you're saying now, how we could use the content we shared today in our session and go to the next level. Because now we have feedback from you.
Yeah, and they do them all. That's the thing. But yeah, and so beautiful thing about the partnership is we've already figured out, hey, here's the high performance thing you should buy. And the reality is pretty much just kind of like what I started with earlier. Just buy the most expensive thing you can buy. I mean, be smart about it. Do you need a terabyte of RAM? Maybe not. 100 gigs is really great.
Yeah.
60 is, that's really good too.
We've got some guardrails, right? Yeah. Yeah. Keep me from overcorrecting, right? And I think that's the problem that we run into, or at least I see people run into.
Yeah.
They steer one way too hard.
Same thing about turning off CPUs or not buying.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same.
Right.
It's the same mindset. Right?
Get out of it. Get back to the data. Yeah.
Well, and speccing it, like, you think of some of these, different rack sizes. It's like, well, why do you need a 4RU if you're only going to put a handful of drives in it? Like, fill that sucker out, man. Like, put a bunch of, storage in it. Or if you don't want to do that, go single blade, and, you can use these really nice, isolon boxes that have tons of, storage capacity. And, you guys talk, what was the term? Endless cold storage? Almost bottoms. That was your term. That's ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah. So we have, I think, largest license now that we'll tell people is a few petabytes. So if you don't know what petabyte is, it's 1,000 terabytes, which is quite a lot. Yes, this is per day.
It's
They
nuts.
produce this. You can only imagine what sort of company is able to produce that type of data. But yes, and they use it. So what's great is like that bottomless cold storage. You can keep adding to it because I think we all see this today with the customers we talk to. It's security policy has now changed from 90-day retention to whatever, and then I want these other types of files shifted. Like, I don't want them for 30 days anymore. Maybe I want them for 7, or who knows. But it's always increasing, and then storage gets a little cheaper. So you can just keep adding these things, and as long as you follow the right guidance on the compute and RAM side, you're pretty good to go. Yeah. Sorry. Well, now I've queued you up, right? Like, hey, I'm going to use this for.
Please still come tomorrow.
Clone and own.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a consumption thing, though. Like, just the way we're all now reprogrammed. Because I just think back way when I built my own computer. It's like, oh no, you buy all these things together. That's your computer. And as scale came into play, and you could build these huge systems, it was not this one big honking box. It was honking box of compute, then honking box of storage, and that's just the natural progression. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. It's a good idea. Yeah. So funny story, and I've actually experienced this. You get so used to using Splunk when it's gone, you're in serious pain. And so this guy was telling me at lunch that they had their Splunk instance working, and somehow like it broke. He's like, well, I couldn't troubleshoot anything. I had to like go grep like on all my systems to go figure out what broke. It was like someone decided to replace a certificate on everything with the wrong certificate. So nothing in Splunk would work because it's all secure, and so wrong certificate, nothing will talk. So he couldn't figure it out because he didn't have Splunk. It was totally down, no data. So what do? He grepped. So then he was like, yeah, so I probably should have been Splunking that type of activity of like, config change, or at least having some sort of process in place. And I've seen that before in one of the deployments that I owned. We ran it all in a cloud, and this is before like we kind of knew what we were doing. Not Splunk, but like, the team that how we wanted to run it was maybe not super mission critical. So it ran in its one little zone. It had no redundancy. So somehow that zone went down and we couldn't troubleshoot or do anything. It was like things are broken, but we can't look at it. Well, go to the other Splunk. It's like, well, no, there is no other one. Like you can't access that zone or that cloud or whatever. So yeah, what do? You don't do anything. You just sit there and you go home. You go home, or you keep hitting refresh, like hopefully the whatever, the internet's back up, and yeah, then you realize, okay, yeah, let's build in some redundancy or somewhere else for us to go do this activity, which it's critical.
It's actually
Uh-huh.
Which is like, it is so it's a big deal. But it's like other people that, and I hear a lot of customers talk about how they got started with Splunk. And it was oftentimes, and it's not every customer, their executive use of it is, hey, I need to solve this problem. There's this tool that I can download. Let's go, I can download and I solve this problem. Oh, by the way, this is pretty cool. Then it kind of goes up here. I'll just look at the suits. They to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
You got to go to the suits.
Yes.
And they go, oh, I stopped our breach from happening. I already stopped the threat, right?
Yeah.
That's what all of a sudden you guys are having, this sales people, right? So it's that funny, like, I'm putting this suit thing, which is, they're just going to have to do it, right?
Yeah.
Suits.
Yeah.
That's how you guys too.
You got to treat it like a first-class citizen. Like, and when we talk about like deploying on virtual environments, like the VX stuff, you got to treat it like a first-class citizen. And in those reference guides or the ready solutions, we do have specific guidance on, hey, here's how you should configure it. And what we found people were doing, this was years ago, is they would treat it like a web server. And we tell them, no, it's not a web server. You can't share cores across systems. Like, we're going to use all of that. And by the way, the IO, no, you can't have it share with your desktop, like whatever system. They're like, well, but it doesn't say that. It's like, well, because we're still learning. We're still figuring this out. And so that guidance and that understanding and treating it like a first-class citizen, it's very important. Oh, yeah. My bad. Oh, yeah. For fun, many things besides competitive foosball.
Competitive
Serious
foosball.
About that.
Right. No challenges coming from... Nope.
We do have a little bit of, at Splunk, we're kind of car geeks. So we do these little racetrack events. Sometimes we invite guests. Corey, I think you've... yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, he was saying he's a car guy. So what kind of car are you driving? Two Jay-Z.
So I wanted to really learn how to drive. I have a pen here.
Nice.
On the track. Several times.
Okay.
Spent $5,000. So
Sounds very familiar.
That doesn't go back in the track.
that doesn't go back to the track. So
But
I
that's-
got a box to really learn how to drive.
Uh-huh.
So my journey is just beginning.
Awesome.
I'm racing, but I love it.
Which Boxster? S.
Just the original.
Oh, really?
Box.
Nice.
With that, you can actually go into spec box.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I met a guy actually that does it, and he can fix it. So I actually saw him totally wrecked on the street. And there's only certain shops that have the equipment. It's all new, right?
Yeah.
Stretch it back to spec to it.
Oh, wow.
So he showed me all that, and I was like, this, but I just spent the I'm just trying to get to learn some more.
Well, maybe you should come out. I know, Corey, you were supposed to. And then something like, I don't know, you said you got brakes for your car, brakes or something. But how many inches is it? Okay. Uh-huh.
Roll cage?
Why don't you just have someone build it for you?
Here you get him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, yeah, it's a hold in. Maybe you can bring it out. Maybe we can go play around. You know, it's funny. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Austin is good. To me, it's all about getting a car. Like I would love to bring my car out there. I just trailering it. Dude, I'm a wimp, man. And then like it's my wife's car that's the trailering car, or yeah, tow vehicle. And I got my car. So my daily driver is I'm a 5.0 guy, 5.0. It's a 2012. It's basically no. I know. So I used to have like one of the OG ones way back in the day. Yeah. But it's a 2012. It's got like suspension. That's about it. But then my track toy, because I got tired of beating it up and showing up like squeaky brakes, because you got to put the race pads on, wearing out tires. So I got a little Lotus 7 replica. So if you don't know what that is, it's basically like a Caterham, but for big boys. So it's like a asymmetric cockpit, and then it has a S2000 drivetrain. So it weighs somewhere around 1,400 to 1,500 pounds and puts out like 189 at the wheel. It's actually not a lot of horsepower.
Oh,
so to give you an idea of, it corners pretty well, maybe okay. So I had it out at this little road course called Thunderhill West up in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, just outside of there. And there were guys in their Camaro ZL1 1LEs, the fancy with the fancy suspension and like race tires, and I'm in that thing and I can go around them on the outside everywhere. It's stupid. It's almost like go-kart hurt your body type thing. There's just so much G's it pulls, and so you see like Top Gear, and you watch like the Stig and the Caterham and like how it's unfair. It really is that unfair. Yeah, it's fun, but I don't want to tow that thing out. I'll just show up and we'll drive your car. Yeah. Yeah. Those things are like I never had the chance to drive one until actually at one of our events. So I'm fortunate to be like the program shepherd, and so I get to go to all of them, obviously. But one of my former bosses, he used to race spec Miatas. Apparently he won like his class or something. Like he's kind of pretty good at it. I didn't really know. I always jabbered back and forth, and we go do like go-karting. And like he was clearly faster than me, way fast. I don't proclaim to be a fast guy, but then I got in with him, and I saw the light about how fast those things can go, and they're amazing, amazing cars. But the culture thing, it's funny. Like, these events, like I talk about, hey, you guys should come out and come check out what happens, and let's drive cars. Let's talk about them. There is this thing like we've been doing these events for a while, and like I saw this article, and I think it wasn't New York Times, but it was posted. It was about like how all these people in our business, they go to these car events and they drive around, and it's like kind of an exclusive thing. It's like, well, no, this is just part of our culture. This is a thing. This is why we get along. This is why we're like, oh, hey man, yeah, what'd you do there? Oh, well, I'm modifying my STI, or like who knows what a 2JZ is? Apparently, I do. Yeah, but it's cool that like there's this culture aspect, and those events are an opportunity to go like really cultivate it. So we'll have to get you guys out. My pleasure. Sounds good. Thank you. Well, that was fun. Are we over?
We're over a bit.
Deal, man.
We're going live. All right, quick reminder. You were fine. Brett, keep the mic pointed at you. You don't hold it like this because the mic has a pattern. The pattern is here, not here. So hold it either here, yeah, like that. All right, we're coming back live here in just a second, folks. Give us 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So, Corey, one of my big problems is that I scheduled them in the booth. That's all. So I want to figure it out for you.
I'm live. Okay. If you want to talk.
As far as outreach, yeah, those are on now. We actually have the direct fund. But yeah, I know that it's been open because that wasn't an issue. We haven't had storage.
Keep on the booth for us. Cover it. That was the chair.
That was well done. Well done.
That's a start. That was impressive. I only wish that was really me.
Welcome back.
Well, okay, we're back. Interesting. 2017, Washington, D.C. For this quick session, I am joined by
Hola. How are you?
And I'm joined by our other friend, podcast. Also known as we've had
So now there are files open, aka Brent Roberts, aka Brent Robertson.
All right, so this section
Awesome.
I'll start there. All about customer success.
Right. Okay. Customer stories. Love the customer. Yeah. Yeah, I think in each one of those places, there was something that was, I'm say more than impactful, right? Because I mean, there was actually times where I was physically moved by some of the stuff they were talking about during the community piece, like the human trafficking thing, the project rolled out for the nonprofit piece. Like I was, like that was right. And there it is, right? Real life. like big data, touching real people, doing real things. I mean, that's yeah, right. Yeah, and trying to bring government entities and nonprofit entities together and using the same data set. I mean, you wouldn't be able to do that in any other instance, right? So, yeah, right, absolutely. Well, spot on. Yeah. In a skill that's highly desirable right now. I mean, it's in yeah. Right. Yeah. And in some of the predictive analytics pieces, like the gentleman from the Dubai airports, right? Like we're gonna look at the queue. We're watching the queues and all these lines. Oh yeah. Right. Like everything, traffic patterns, baggage. Yeah. Nah. Maybe a little bit. Yeah. Oh right. Yeah. 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 And having met some airports where it takes forever to get your bag. That's a big deal. Big deal. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Affleck. Right. The state of Louisiana. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
So those are
Hmm. Yeah. No, it's solid look. Right. Right. That's the biggest thing, right? I mean, we talked about it earlier with Simon, just sharing data between all those different people. That part of that culture hasn't slowed down. If anything, it's probably accelerated. I mean, because these guys can't grow this way without that kind of sharing of data. Just a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely. We've now got a bar. Like, we have to hit this level pretty much every time. Hmm. Is it the Connect portal? Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, just incredibly deep metrics about everybody's platform. Like, here's exactly what we need to do doing these kinds of data model raw, all those kinds of things. And we haven't had that kind of data before. Right. Oh,
The other thing was,
Okay, that's good. Where's your IT guys? Not here. They're not here. So where you guys are? Okay. Okay.
right. You got to be curious by nature, right? I mean, to be able to be a good Splunk user. No, they do.
okay. One thing I love also.
Yeah, I caught that and took a note about it. No, it's the same day. I'm like, I took a note to go look at that.
I feel like that's integrated
If it wasn't, it is now. So I'm writing that down for later too.
But anyway, I thought this one, obviously,
But it's it acts the same way. It's a cabinet this big, a lot of drive. Yeah. Now we do that. It's not
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, yeah.
Oh, Brett, that's what it is. Okay. Richard Campione got up and talked about updates, specifically around enterprise security. So everything seemed to be, I mean, it's not going to be overview of how just as a product strategy, they have to alert, investigate, and action themselves, all powered by machine learning. For a number of use cases, so I think that's a framework I can understand, and it helps me acquire these.
Right.
But then the machine learning.
Yeah. So, and some of the demos that they ran too during the particular piece, like particularly around the ransomware piece, I mean, that was pretty amazing. Yeah.
I was wondering what you said awkwardly showing.
Right.
realize you can realize how supervised, but they like doing a demo and then it's
Just uh-huh. Yeah. Right. Well, and it's, yeah, I mean, that topic comes up in almost all of my customers that I have right now. I mean, that's come up in every last one of them, where they're either doing higher levels of audit on our product, and now they're asking about how do we do this? I'm like, well, now, right, do you have Splunk in house? Because let's go talk about that and how we can protect you with that.
So he's talking about basically it was the concept of they're now going what used to be basically complex searching and there wasn't so much
Right.
the same goal, right? The same canonical goal, same underlying hardware,
Yeah.
improvement in performance in some cases. So which is super cool because I couple that with advancements around CPU
Yeah.
Because he said the skill of
Yeah. And yeah, it was one of the first things I thought. I was like, what will the impact of this be to our real world users? How much additional work will they be able to do and discover additional data? Like, it's just no concept. No, there you go. That's better. Holy moly. Yeah. Yeah. You could tell by the way it was, yeah. He was pattern searching before he even started working on it. It was kind of, yeah, I saw that. No. He's done that a few times. No way would I do that. Let alone try to solve a Rubik's Cube. Here, let's do it right now on YouTube. I got one in the bag. Do you want to try it?
all right, so the other product basically most of the
Yeah. To deep dive in the morning. Yeah. Nerd out a little bit. Me? No. Never.
okay, so
Yeah. No. Yeah. That'd be way better than this. I think if you work in IT, you pretty much are going to stop, and I have to see inside that. There's. That could be. Yeah. Right. It's probably indicative of the growth that we've seen, like in Splunk environments, at least across our customer base. Yeah. Right.
Well, dudes, this has been fun. We're going to talk about the keynote that we had. Yeah, we are going to take the 5-minute
That sounds good. I like it.
5-minute break and we'll be back.
All right.
Oh yeah. Do you want the box?
I can talk.
All right. All right, welcome back, everybody. Oh, here's my chair. That's awesome. So, hey, everybody, this is Rob Hout back again. I'm here with Tyler Hunstead and Ralph.
Woo.
Ooh, sorry. I'm horrible with last names, so I can't read your badge, and I've only known you for like 2 years. So,
it's all right. It's a complicated last name.
Oh, and we're going to be joined also by Kevin McDonald. And these three gentlemen are all from the Isilon business unit inside Dell EMC. And we're going to talk a little bit today about Isilon and how that fits into the Splunk architecture a little bit. So, Tyler? It's going to be fun. So when you say unstructured file, you're talking about literally just whatever I have, kind of almost like a data lake, so to speak. So it's a very linear scale from performance, capacity, network, communications. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so essentially the more nodes you add within a cluster, the faster your cluster goes. So your rebuild times are spread across more drives, your processing of incoming writes, it's just spread across more nodes within the cluster.
Mm-hmm. Now, for our Splunk customers, I think what I've run into a few times is I've gone into environments where they have relatively, I hesitate to use the word small, but I'll say maybe a capped Splunk infrastructure, because they're doing hot and they're doing warm ingest and they're only keeping the data for a little while. But they're pushing that data off to frozen because they've got to keep it around somewhere, right? And so it's not searchable anymore. Customers can't get to the data set. And so when we start talking to them about Isilon and using a cold bucket capacity, and one of the biggest reasons there is it's still available to them, the data that's sitting there. And then we start talking about retention for those environments. Particularly, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but more and more customers I've gone to, they're talking about 3, 4, 5, 7, or even longer retention periods for data, particularly around the security aspect of their organization, right? Whether it be endpoint devices, intrusion detection, those kinds of things, pattern recognition over time. But some of that data is customer facing from them, right? It's customer facing data on their side, and they have to keep that content for legal reasons or regulatory reasons on their end. So it's more and more important to be able to scale and have that data available, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I have one large banking customer, and they currently use Isilon for their frozen bucket. And one unique thing that they do is actually use Smart Lock to worm protect that data for 7 years, because they have to keep this data around to know who's logged into any device within their network. And if they don't have this data, then they're going to get fined I don't know however millions of dollars for losing it.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting use case, though. Send the data into a smart lock compliant folder, because I hadn't thought about that before. I haven't had that come up. That's really interesting. Now, Kevin and Tyler, you both have touched on something that we had Simon up on earlier today, and we were talking about Splunk becoming more mission critical as an application, and the data being more mission critical, and it's things that they hadn't necessarily been concerned about in the past, but clearly their customers are now, and they're looking to their partners, Dell EMC being one of those, to help them provide that kind of DR and HA and protection around the data and the application itself. So, just talk a little bit about like how we do that with Isilon. What do we do to help protect people from that aspect? Yeah, and so like this morning during the keynote, when they talked about their ransomware detection and potentially how to control that and do some things around, potentially quarantine that data set, the first thing that popped in my head is, hey, that's great. Now I've been alerted to it. Now I can go use some of the technologies available to me on Isilon to further protect me, right? I can now bring that data back and not even be worried about it. I've now been notified and I know how to recover.
We introduced our Gen 6 program. It really was a very dense.
Yeah, and the density is going to give us a couple things, right? So the density, not only in capacity, but now we're kind of coming down and having more core to spindle ratio in the boxes, right? It's also going to give me a lot more throughput into the system for some of these larger Splunk environments when I've got a number of indexers, a bunch of indexers in the environment, trying to hammer that system pretty hard. I'm going to be able to support that from a performance perspective. Mm-hmm. So what do you guys what have you been seeing in the cold space? Like do you have some fairly large environments you've been working on, or have you seen the retentions kind of go up, and some other interesting use cases around some of that data?
Yep. Most of my customers are still trying to figure out how long to retain that data.
Mm-hmm.
They have no idea. So a lot of them are just going frozen indefinitely at this point in time. So there's dumping off or just basically doing the Hadoop data roll into some large Hadoop cluster or Hadoop storage environment. But yeah, the most I see online for my current customers is about a year of cold. So anything after that, they don't see the value in it at this point in time.
Sure.
But maybe that'll change in the future.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. And the entire part of a healthcare organization is touched, right? It's not just patient data, but it's also all the security data. All the syslog data from every device, because it's all potentially intrusion detection for patient data. So they have to keep all that stuff. And for me, I've got customers kind of financial. They're in the mortgage industry, banking industry, especially the mortgage industry, right? It's where I have to keep mortgages at 15-year, 30-year plus, right? And they have to keep all that data around that whole piece and all the information that surrounds that. So again, the systems it sits on, the networks it sits on, all the security patch, and all the audit information around access to those files, right? So that's all very important data for them, and they've got to keep it. And right now, it's life of the file. So if that's a 30-year mortgage, for example, I got to keep that data for potentially 30 years. So yeah, good for me. Yeah, I just want to highlight that a little bit. So if you are at .conf with the rest of us, make sure to stop by the booth, and one of the guys here we can take you through the demo. We'll take a look at it and actually look at the app and in the demo cloud and have a little run at it. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm good. If did you have something else? You were going to say something there.
Yeah, one great thing about it is it's completely transparent to the application. It still thinks it's talking to the Isilon and all that data is local to it, but behind the covers, it's just going out to the cloud and pulling that data back and serving it out to the client.
Yeah, and for those folks that don't know, so Cloud Pools is leveraging the Smart Pools engine, right? And so we're still using all the same tools we had available with that. So the Smart Pools engine is doing basically tiering within the cluster, and now external to the cluster with Cloud Pools using data that we know about the file. So modify time, create time, access time if I have it enabled, or tiering by path or by file type, potentially. Yeah. And those rules can stack, right? Yeah. Mhm. So Tyler, we talked a lot about Isilon being an AS platform, and we haven't really mentioned the protocol, right, during that conversation. Can you talk us a little bit about what protocols are supported on the Isilon platform and how they get access to file? Right. So for those that don't know, HDFS is the Hadoop distributed file system, right? And when that's deployed on Isilon, if I recall, we're also deploying some of the functions of the Hadoop cluster on top of the Isilon system. So name node, for example, being one of the primary versions of that, because typically, even for the Splunk users here that are rolling into a Hadoop cluster, they still have that impact, right? So they're looking at doing primary and secondary name node in a traditional existing Hadoop cluster. That's a point of failure, right? Those things roll off. They're not automated for the most part. And so now we're talking about taking that name node function and fully distributing and distributing it across the nodes of the Isilon cluster. So now I've got a fully resilient name node system, which I might not have otherwise. Yeah, there's still some X factor of replication of data set for data protection. It's a little bit tunable, but by default, it's usually 3X factor replication.
Right. Yeah, I was sitting in a session earlier today about high availability and disaster recovery, and it was a packed room. And basically, when they asked the question, "Who's backing up data?" there's maybe like 4 hands that went up out of hundreds of people. So it's no one's doing it, and there's probably no easy way of backing up that data in its current form. So Isilon will dramatically simplify your backup process because we have that single mount point that all your indexers would access, and basically we can go directly off using the NDMP to tape. And also with going about the HDFS, you don't have to write it in HDFS in order to access it by HDFS. So one of my customers is actually writing their frozen data out through NFS, and they're using their Hadoop instance of their choice to query that data directly through HDFS. So.
All right. Well, thank you. So I think the thing that was interesting to me that I've heard so far while we've been here at Conf has been a lot of it is about the security aspects that's coming. So like it's the ransomware piece we talked about earlier. I think that's going to be having that kind of ability. And then we've had this for a while, but just educating customers on how to protect themselves from instances like that, from malware kind of intrusion pieces. And I think it's kind of on folks like us and our customers to kind of re-educate themselves on the tools that they have at hand to be able to protect themselves from those kinds of things. So, if you do have Isilon or you don't have Isilon, at least learn what you have and be able to protect yourself from those kinds of issues. So what else can you tell us about we talked about the Gen 6 platform a little bit, and have you had a chance to get that or integrate that into a Splunk environment yet?
And so currently I don't have any customers that are doing just like we are talking. We're talking about their issues. So a lot of my existing agents are talking about it. So hey, what we did, I just closed a very large deal. And a pretty significant they went all in. So they were actually looking at and selling products. So business model. So they're talking multi-billion-dollar we went in is we pitched the idea of VX to be able to support that scale. And they love the story. So they rolled in our VX block. And so that's really been the first opportunity. It actually just got this last week. It's still so we really track our stuff. This week here. And basically said, hey, so that's huge for us because we're already
Yeah, so you've now positioned them to be able to, like, you've got a scale out application now positioned saddle up against a scale out architecture. So now when they're ready to grow that app, you're gonna be able to grow the infrastructure along with it, with very few challenges ahead of them, really. So it's gonna be easy to grow and easy to scale, and I think they've positioned themselves for success down the road, right? So, yeah. All right, well, gentlemen, unless you've got something else to add there, I think we can get close to wrap up.
I'm good.
All right, yeah. Ralph, Kevin, Tyler, yeah, I appreciate you coming out.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that sound okay? I seem really loud. Yeah.
Test. Yeah, can you hear me on this? How's that sound?
Brett, you sound very quiet compared to me.
I think that's standard operating procedure.
What? Ground control to Major Tom. You sound fine. Brett's the one in question. Wow. Yeah, this is true. I'm outstanding. Yeah, so first of all, I think there's been some great sessions today. I just came from a session on Splunk build versus buy, basically talking all around the
advantages of adopting Splunk versus trying to build your own using something like Elk or Hadoop, which I think was a really great session and is being part of our CPSD division. The whole build versus buy conversation is something that resonates really, really well for me. And then also, I think, to your point, I think our session at noon today about Splunk and providing an elastic ecosystem or an elastic infrastructure for Splunk to kind of give you that cloud experience on-prem to allow you to deploy and open up your Splunk deployment to more apps, to more insight, I think was really, really helpful. And hopefully we'll record it and have it out there shortly. Yeah, so I think the most important thing to come away with and what we're advocating for our customers is, you know, as you adopt Splunk, it's really, really easy to adopt Splunk. And what most customers end up doing is, you know, initially they'll deploy to a laptop or to some fixed infrastructure, be it enterprise infrastructure that they may have on hand. And at some point that creates, I'll say, an inability to elastically scale Splunk. So if you're basically stuck with fixed assets, or you're stuck with an initial investment that is not taking the future into mind, you want to be able to increase your Splunk deployment, but do so in a way that takes advantage of your investment. And that's basically what we're talking about with Ready Systems, is being able to provide something that is a dynamic infrastructure where, you know, in my case with customers I've worked with, you know, the ability to say, you know, today I'm doing Splunk Enterprise, but tomorrow I want to do ES, or I want to do ITSI, or I want to do UBA. And the ability to basically have an infrastructure that literally you can go, okay, and you expand those resources either vertically within virtualization or horizontally in a nodal-based architecture, so that you can basically continue without interruption expanding your Splunk deployment in your enterprise. Yeah, so that's one of the things I think that you hit on that I think is really important is I think we're one of the few vendors, infrastructure vendors out there that have developed this level of a relationship with Splunk, that have gone through the validation process with Splunk, and that have made this kind of investment in both our certification and validation process with Splunk, as well as resources to assist customers with their Splunk deployment. I think for us, it's a very unique differentiator for us in the market. I think it goes down to two things, and one I've kind of hit on a lot, and that is being able to provide a customer an environment that is extremely elastic and validated for Splunk. The other side of it, though, also is, most big data use cases, the underlying infrastructure tends to be divergent from your typical enterprise management strategy. So the nice thing about hyperconverged is it's validated and logical for Splunk, but at the same time, your things like VMware tools or your other management tools that you're using within your enterprise can generally be leveraged in a way that a customer may not be used to dealing with if they're trying to do a typical DAS deployment and trying to manage a bunch of unmanaged hardware. So which one? Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. So the idea was, a number of customers that we've worked with, there's a certain amount of ambiguity in their travels currently in their deployment of Splunk, right? They know their current use case might be, let's say, 600 gig. They may go up to 1.2 terabytes, 2 terabytes, whatever. The actual value is not material, but the notion that I know where I'm starting, I know I'm going to something that's much larger. And in part of that journey, I might go from something like just enterprise to ES to ITSI. Isn't it nice to have the ability to say, I'm going to start from a system that can address my current needs today, but then when it comes down to it and I say, okay, today I need a 16 core indexer because I'm running enterprise, but I'm going to join ES and ITSI, and so I want to have a larger indexer. I need 24, or more cores, 36 cores. How much easier is it to say, again, go to your infrastructure, and your infrastructure vendor goes, okay, and you're able to deploy those without having to rip and replace any fixed investment you've had. And that's not to say you're overbuying. What you're doing is you're able to share the resources among those nodes more efficiently, so those are available to you and you can more easily scale out as you grow. Right. Exactly. Exactly. What's up, buddy? This thing is working. Oh, that's a disappointment. Okay. It's awesome. I literally just got off the Cube, so the Cube TV is recording just over there, and we literally all we talked about was Ready Systems. It was awesome. I think the thing about it is that, and we talked about this a bit with them, was customers, like we've all talked about, Splunk is a tier 1 first-class citizen app. They don't want to do this hodgepodge deployment. They want a proven, validated enterprise-class solution to it. And even folks like, Simon from the partner engineering team, the Splunk team's starting to change their opinion, right? They're not just saying, well, just, maybe buy some cheap servers and best of luck to you. They're having a strong opinion that they want you as a Splunk customer to invest in a proven, hardened, good, known good platform that is not just good now, but that's highly likely to support your needs in the future, because they're 100% aware that use cases change, right? The deployment of applications change rapidly over time. So making a decision that's a hodgepodgey, like maybe it can get away with it now, puts folks in a place that locks them in and locks them out of future investment. So I think the Ready System is well positioned to help customers get that easy button from a consumption model, the cloud-like experience, in an on-premises deployment on a platform validated by Splunk. Oh, by the way, John Wall put on a blue beard. He put on the beard twice. He actually put it on at the beginning, and then he put it on at the end. And we actually got to talk about the How Happy Is Conf thing. So I was pretty excited to talk about that as a use case. And I know we're going to talk about it tomorrow, but the IoT, we started getting down the path of IoT and analytics and the number of devices growing rapidly, and how Splunk has emerged as really a world-class platform for IoT and for even like stack monitoring, so monitoring Pivotal Cloud Foundry stacks, monitoring, Azure stacks, right? And then or even VMware, right? So anyways, we get into that, and I said, well, that's it's a kind of a good segue, right? So we got this thing called Misfit, and he was like, Misfit, huh? Well, that seems fitting. I was like, no, I totally deserve that. But anyways, it was a good conversation, and we got to talk about all the cool stuff we're doing, specifically about all the cool beards. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, so, no, sorry. Sure. So there's a couple things to be aware of. Is one of the primary differentiators between the two systems is generally around what is the customer's goal, or I'll say standardization in terms of their infrastructure virtualization platform. So if they are all in on VMware, if they are a fan of VMware and vSAN, the VX Rail is a very, very good product, and again, validated for Splunk, because it's a turnkey solution that we have worked in conjunction with VMware to build, that is an entirely bespoke VMware stack. So for customers that are all in on VMware, that's kind of one of the first things to understand about it in terms of the two products. Now with VX Rack, the interesting thing is you can in fact do VMware on it as well. However, it also gives you the option. So say you're a customer who you are a VMware shop, or even if you're not a VMware shop, but there are other things that you want to run, like you're not necessarily interested in running virtualization for your indexers, but you're interested in running virtualization for, let's say, your license master or other Splunk roles, your search heads. That's something that you can do within a VX Rack Flex. And VX Rack Flex leverages a different technology for software-defined storage, which is our Scale.io product. And given that it uses the Scale.io product, that means you can use other hypervisors. So if you're a KVM shop, if you're a Hyper-V shop, or again, if you want to just run Linux, it gives you advantage of software to share I/O and to share storage, but you have a choice in terms of what hypervisor or no hypervisor that you want to use for your compute. Right. So the other difference is in the VX Rail platform, it's basically bring your own networking. So if a customer basically has to work with a partner or look with their own networking team to provide the networking infrastructure to bring the appliances together. With the VX Rack product line, all of the networking is included and engineered with the product. Both products have management stack. So just as an example, the VxRail has a product called VxRail Manager that helps you do things like rolling upgrades and those sorts of things within the product. But from a networking perspective, the VxRack product is all inclusive, including the physical networking. Yeah, I just wanted to add to that because I think a couple things that Joe mentioned earlier in terms of, Isilon is a very, very mature product with Splunk. We've had a co-support agreement in place with Splunk since 2014, which has been fantastic. And then, to the point of not being able to freeze your data, I was talking recently to a federal customer, and it was really interesting. So they're talking about retaining 7 years of data. And the question was, well, do I do this on Hadoop data role? Do I freeze this? So in the conversation I had with them, I said, well, are you actively using all 7 years of this data? And they're like, oh yeah, our plan is to build analytics around all of this data going back 7 years, because our concern isn't that guy that dumps 50 petabytes of data or 50 terabytes of data on a one day and decides they're going to walk out the door. It's the guy that's sitting there incrementally siphoning off data over time. And we want to be able to historically go back and look at what the trends are with different users and build use cases around analytics that go back all the way for 7 years. And so the fact that Isilon provides that bottomless cold bucket that is searchable and performant is absolutely fantastic compared to something like, doing a MapReduce job to a Hadoop data role or having to rehydrate data coming back from frozen. No, I'm just excited with where things have been going with Splunk, and I'm really interested in where our customers are going, and this is great. And as you mentioned, for any of our customers that want to talk to us about any of the ready systems, we can engage with them as part of a basically a free engagement pre-sales to discuss sizing their environment, to discuss how their environment would look on a ready system for Splunk.
We're out of misfits.
and then by the end,
Sure.
of the
Hello?
we're like, yeah, we're done.
Hello?
We're good. And I'm French. He is an entrepreneur. He's more F&B though. So, have you been to Paris? Okay, there's fast.
Yeah,
It's
I'm-
fresh farm to fork.
I'm live.
Called Naked. He started that chain and sold it, and then he was the COO of another F&B called X-Key.
Right. So this
And
microphone
now
is
he
live.
actually work for a company by the name of Resi, which is integrating with Airbnb to do their reservations. So he would work on EMEA expansion. So he is behind the 8 ball on technology with F&B, and he's trying to transition into technology, and it's really hard. And then he's working on a startup for broadcast. Anyways, whatever he wants to do. Yeah, he's fun. He's fun, and I love his family and his parents, and the kids are adorable. How about you? How are you? What are you up to outside of work?
Just hanging out, holding a mic.
Yeah. You actually want me to? Okay. Yeah.
My oldest is 17.
Oh, you have a 17-year-old?
I do. I have a
Wow.
17, a 15-year-old, and a 13-year-old.
Oh my gosh.
All girls.
All girls? You're gonna go for number 4?
No, I got that too.
Oh.
So this is my oldest. This is her senior picture. So
She is really
thank
beautiful.
you, thank
She
you.
look at that smile.
Yeah,
Is it
that's
hard to see that? Like when you're like, that's my
is.
baby.
That's my baby
Look at
girl.
those. They're
Yeah,
beautiful.
thank you. So that's
They're really
that's
beautiful.
at Keeneland. The race.
That is so.
Yeah.
Oh, that
You
looks
like
great.
that? Isn't that awesome?
That is super cool.
She got. Let's do that. So
Did you take those?
No. We actually had a professional photographer take her senior pictures.
Yeah, she's really beautiful. Like
Yeah,
she's
thank you.
very beautiful.
Yeah, the whole family. Just real quick, I just got the latest.
Yep.
I still have the mic.
Here, so that's the whole crew there. So so there's Shelby, Libby, Hannah.
I
There's
love
my,
it.
There's my wife.
Yay!
Pam, so yeah.
Oh, and you guys are all out of
Kentucky.
but
Yeah.
like literally near Keeneland. And
Yeah.
what was it? Lexington. Are you out of Lexington?
Yeah, Lexington.
Oh,
So we were
she's
at a
beautiful, too.
thank you. We were at a
Oh, cool. Wow, I think I've seen it.
Yep.
I must have seen it when I was there for the World Games. I'm sure Versailles. I love it. No, Versailles. It's funny when I was there, I was like, oh my gosh, how do I pronounce this? Do I still need to hold this? I'm still gonna hold it. Is it good? Okay.
Are they all working? No. Just 1 and 2. Yeah, Lexington. Yeah, that's what I heard. So I wasn't sure.
You know, in general, it's becoming more of a luxury. It's time consuming. It's hard. It's all of that. It's a dark art.
You good?
I'm gonna
Do you troubleshoot? What?
help with the worst, but I really try and my.
You're still in California, right?
Yeah, I'm still in
All right.
California.